And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Reel, I'm Dave Barlett, myself, Pete Goslaw. Our special guest, St. Lawrence Central great, Cody Kilcoyne. Welcome to the show, Cody.
Thanks for having me.
A lot to talk about, I'm sure. A lot of lacrosse, I'm sure we're going to talk about. But I'll throw it over to Joey. We'll hit the road running.
All right. So this one's kind of cool for me. This is really somebody that played for me, probably the first impact player for my program in basketball, even though he went on to a big career in lacrosse, and that'll be the bulk of our conversation. But CK, thanks for coming on, and I appreciate it. I know that times have been crazy, and we always have some COVID talk. That's the whole reason this show was created, was because of what's going on in the world right now. So we'll give you a little chance to, before we dive into your athletic career, talk a little bit about what's going on with the family business and how things have changed, or things along that line. And obviously, you were scheduled to get married this month, and you've had to delay that for a summer. So give you a little chance to talk about what's going on in your life before we dive into the athletics side.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me on. I get a lot of road time in my job, so I listen to a lot of you guys' podcasts. Keeps me entertained for quite a while. Yeah, so with COVID happening, obviously Scotia wasn't very happy, but we had to move our wedding. We were scheduled to have our wedding the 29th of this month, push it to July of next year, just hopefully a safe bet. Who knows, though, with this thing. But yeah, unfortunately, we had to move that. And then with COVID happening, our business has actually been extremely busy. We're probably one of the fortunate businesses that have fed off of this, because everybody is more worried about the meat shortage coming back with those big processing facilities. For the people that don't know, we raise beef cattle, turn around, we wholesale the meat to restaurants. We do our own distribution, as well as providing beef and pork to private people now. We didn't used to sell directly to private people, but with COVID, I'd say a bulk of 95% of our business was the restaurant industry. So when most of them shut down, we were like, what do we do with our steaks and all that kind of stuff? So we opened it up to home deliveries, and that's been saving grace for us for keeping us going through this whole thing. Now that restaurants are getting back up and running, it's a little bit more stable. But we've got a ton of expansions coming up, trying to put in our own USDA slaughtering facility, couple other big expansion things coming up too. So there's a lot going on in the Kilcoyne Farms world, at least. So yeah, that's basically
how many miles a week, and how far do you travel, buddy?
So my father does a route up through, he goes from, so our farm now is in Hudson Falls, pretty close to Pete, I believe.
Yep. I was gonna ask
yeah. Yep. Yeah, we moved it from Brazier to Hudson Falls. And our route we covered, my father goes all the way up to Saranac Lake, kind of pulls a U, he goes up through Lake Placid, Plattsburgh, and then back down. I cover the majority of the miles. I go all the way out to Croghan, Ithaca, swing back through, and then all the way down to just above the city, like Cold Spring area. So I would say probably 1,000, 1,200 miles a week, somewhere in that range. Doing deliveries. So I try to see as many of your podcasts as possible.
Yeah,
we'll keep track.
I was going to ask you that you do have a place down here now at Hudson Falls, and of course I'm intrigued. I'm a meat lover, so I'm going to reach out to you for something here. So yeah, we'll get a hold of you.
Yeah, definitely.
I swear by his stuff, Pete. and Pete, I don't know if he and his family in one or the 2 or 3 trips that we've made to Lake George, they've come over and because they're so close, they came and watched our games at the Lake George when you were broadcasting. So
it's
great. Obviously,
Hudson Falls is not that far from. It's probably half hour maybe from me, because actually I'm going to Queensbury tomorrow, and Hudson Falls is literally 5 miles down the road from Queensbury. So.
Yep. It's all pretty close.
Well, CK, you probably got 3 guys here. Number one, we'll support the product. We probably would, you need some deliveries done, drop it off. I got nothing to
do. Sounds good.
You want to branch into the Adirondacks, the northern part of the Adirondacks?
Exactly. There's a lot of people.
I got time.
Yep.
All right, buddy. So, hey, we obviously we want to get to the point when we were playing D1 lacrosse at Albany, but things happened long before that, and we'll give you a chance right now. Let you describe your pathway to and it's an unbelievable pathway, because you're not going to hear too many stories like this on how he ended up getting to play for the University of Albany in D1 lacrosse from being a North Country boy. So I'll give you a chance to talk about that. You can start right at St. Lawrence Central, and then Dave and Pete and I will feed off of that. All right.
Sounds good. I graduated in 2010 from St. Lawrence. Joey had me most of the way through for basketball, where I, tried a lot of what he's taught. It's pretty special, family, respect. I could have gone the other way. I was a bit of a spitfire basketball player. Just about fouled out almost every game, if Joey remembers correctly. It really helped having him, the calm, cool, and collected kind of head, teach me a little bit about this. If any of you guys know my father, he's a little bit more like I am, so probably on the extreme end.
Okay. Oh yeah. I just never heard Joey described as that before. So.
Calm, cool, or collected, either one.
Yeah.
Well, to the Kilcoyne family, he is very calm, cool, and collected.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
That would be true.
Okay.
Unfortunately, basketball, while it was a major passion of mine, it didn't really pan out as far as skill-wise, I would say. So I kind of chose to focus more on lacrosse, where, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, but I think my junior year was the first and only year that St. Lawrence lacrosse has won a state playoff game. I'm not sure if they have in the past now, but
no, that's still the only one, buddy.
Yeah, so that was pretty special. We had a really good team that year. We beat Shenango Forks. Connor McEwen, our goalie, played unbelievable. Probably stood on his head for us. We might not have won that game if he didn't play that well. We set that bar for the St. Lawrence program, and a ton of great lacrosse players coming out of there. I played junior at the same time for Akwesasne Indians for junior B. Started out as junior A. Their junior A program folded, turned into the junior B program. So I got quite a few lacrosse minutes out there for, I would go from St. Lawrence Central practice right over to the island and be practicing for another 2 hours with them. And that went all the way through college as well. That brings another whole aspect for lacrosse in general, playing on the island, playing for that team. You want to talk about skill and love for the game. It's a whole nother ball game when you play out there. That's where I consider most of the bulk of my skill coming from, was playing with those guys, growing up with them, and getting the tricks of the trade. Box cross is a totally different game anyway. And that transitioning over into field, I think, helped me quite a bit. Like I said before, with the aggression stuff, it might not have helped me as much in field lacrosse because it's not quite as aggressive, so I got a little more penalties than I should have. But after graduating, I went to Clarkson University, and the school didn't really fit me there. I was more engineer mindset based. I wasn't really too into engineering. I was more of a business major, so ended up transferring out. halfway through my sophomore semester, or halfway through my sophomore year, to a school in Michigan called Adrian College. Had a couple good seasons there. The assistant coach from Clarkson was now their head coach. So I got in pretty easily out there. Had a couple good seasons out there, about a year and a half. And, I basically said to myself, I might as well see how good I actually am. So I ended up calling Ty Thompson, who's a good friend of mine. And he had a spot in his house. So he said, come on over, we'll give it a shot, try out for the team, and try it out. Luckily I made it. The coaches saw something in me, and absolutely gracious that Coach Marr is an unbelievable coach. He's, I can still go over to his house today and he welcomes you with open arms. Probably one of the best coaches that I've had in a while. And he gave me a job. I was on the man down team. Looking back on it, I realized, a little bit more of why I didn't get the minutes that I felt I should have gotten. Being a transfer, I only had 1 year of eligibility. There's a lot of stuff played into it. Looking back, they had a very talented freshman class. Looking back, I can see why I didn't get the overall minutes that I think I should have gotten. But, it really instilled quite a bit of character in me at the same time, and he always reinforced me, it's nothing you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. And that's how I ended up at Albany, really. So, and when I walked onto the team, they already had a roster of 49 players. I was right around the cusp of the 50th. And they were a top 10 Division I team.
Yeah, a lot of talent has come out of the Turtle. Quite a place to play over there on the island.
Oh yeah.
And you played with some exceptional players at U Albany. I, for one, watched a lot of your games online because of course, we had the Thompson boys at Salmon River. So followed them all the way straight through, and you guys had one heck of a run there all year. So elaborate a little bit. I'm sure Joey's got a lot of questions for you, but elaborate a little bit on I know you said you didn't get many minutes, but you had some great games. So if you can elaborate on some of your accomplishments on the field with U Albany, and you got to tell us about the trips. I mean, everybody tells us some things, but there's some, D1, you're going all over the place. You got to have some trip stories.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the first one right off the bat that comes to mind is obviously playing in the Carrier Dome. There's no better feeling. It's hard to explain. It's when they say it's a different atmosphere, it legitimately is a different atmosphere. You walk in, the air's different. You feel so much smaller on that field. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's the same in basketball or not, but for whatever reason, it's very, it's very in the moment kind of feeling when you step out on that field. You don't realize how big that arena is until you're on the field looking around going, holy, like huge stuff. And getting to play against Syracuse, getting to play against Notre Dame, Cornell, all that, they're all unbelievable experiences. And our coach Marr always said, we're not going to play anybody better than we're playing ourselves right now. Being a top 10 Division I team, when you got those lull games of, UMass lull, UVM, those kind of games, he always hit on the head, you're not playing anybody better this week than yourself. So go hard in practice. And, some of the best stories, I guess, and experiences were just from practicing with Lyle Thompson and Connor Fields and Blaze Reardon. All three of those guys are top of the level professionals now. Ty Thompson, Thompson brothers. It's some of the stuff you would see them do in practice was unbelievable. It's so the experiences on the game, game side of it, they were really definitely awesome experiences. But I always go back to practice and seeing them behind the scenes doing what they do best, and trying to learn and feed off of them at the same point. So
So I got another question for you, Cody, before I scoot back over to Joe. They teach you the hidden ball trick?
I think anybody that goes to the island is taught the hidden ball trick at about age 2. So
I'll tell you what. I've done a couple games there, a lot of games, lacrosse games there. Tommy Smith and I were doing a game up on, I don't know if it was, I think it was against Saranac, when Saranac came down on Salmon's Field, and we called a pretty good game with two of us looking. It's hard not to see where the ball is, and
yeah,
I was following where I thought the ball was, and so was Tommy, and we realized it was totally on the opposite side of the field. And I'm going, what the hell is that? And somebody told me later, that's our secret hidden ball trick. So
that's what I give the reservation the utmost respect and credit for their creativity that they allow their players to do. A lot of coaches want it to be X's and O's and run the play this way, do the thing that way. They just let the game come to them. And it's more than a game in their culture. It's medicine. It's they're there for a reason. So they feel not to really focus too much on how to actually do one thing or the other. Let the game come to you. You have different skills. You have different qualities that you bring to the table, to the field. Let that speak for itself and let the game roll out in your hands, really. So
CK, I mean, not being a big lacrosse guy, you knew that anyway, but the few times that I was able to go to high school games, and now I go to high school games all the time, being the athletic director, I never had seen anything until I went and watched you play. Everybody went and watched you play at the Carrier Dome. I went 2 days later and watched a freaking game in what felt like 32 degrees. It was freezing. And it's funny because we had Wally Johnson on here a few weeks back, and we talked about how great UVM is. Well, at the time, maybe it's changed, but at the time, their lacrosse field stunk. It was no better than what we had at St. Lawrence Central down on the old football field. But yeah, that was the first time that I got to see the Thompson boys play, and I had never seen anybody pick up a loose ball as easily as Lyle did. I'd never seen it before. I just never seen it. He made it look so simple, like Tiger Woods flipping a ball on his wedge, like it's no big deal. And I know that's one of the hardest things in the world. The talent was unbelievable that you got to play with those guys. Yeah.
And it's contagious at the same point. During practice, everybody's trying cool stuff. Like Coach Marr is very much on the mindset of letting the game come to you, not very super structured kind of deal. He's very open to obviously having the Thompsons, seeing the success that they had with it. It's a contagious kind of team when you're on that kind of in that environment, I guess.
So Cody, just kind of an odd question, but did you know Matt Bertram's?
Yes, I graduated with him.
Yeah, okay. He's a nephew of a friend of mine who's from Cincinnati. I know Matt's from Ohio as well, and I just wanted to throw that name at you, see if you knew him.
Yeah, he's probably one of the strongest small people I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he coaches out in Cleveland.
Yeah, he's not a very big guy, but he is probably one of the strongest that we had on our team.
Cool.
I considered myself fast when I was younger,
mm-hmm.
and I wasn't even close to as fast as he was.
Wow. Interesting.
So you get it, CK, you get to talk a little bit, because I didn't even realize this, but when you left Adrian, I mean, you were the offensive MVP of your conference. And to go from, so I mean, I know you were going, and you're now trying to make a quality D1 team, and you just kind of expressed the fact that you thought you could have played a little bit more, but you got to talk about how did you change your mindset from being an offensive MVP at the D3 level to I'm now on the man down unit, and that little defensive hound out there at the D1 level. I mean, how did you get your mindset to wrap around that? And I know that you want to be the best at whatever you do, and so I'm sure that's what you're going to tell me. But it had to been a bit. This had to been a different, because you just went from being dad at the offensive end and scoring goals to now I'm in a special situation on defense.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, at Adrian, I was scoring 5 to 10 goals a game. Quite a bit of offensive success out there. And to switch over to defense, and that's where I struggled. That's why I say I felt like I could have played more. But that's not me saying anything bad about the coaching staff whatsoever. He had, if you look in the PLL now, those kids were all freshmen when I was there as a senior. So, he had to groom them and get them ready to go as best he could, rather than spend, half a year on a senior kind of deal, which I could have stepped in and played as an offensive player for sure. But when it comes to switching roles and playing defense, I played a decent amount of defense in box lacrosse. You do anyway. But my mindset was, if I'm not going to get on the field as an offensive player, and I know I'm good enough to, I'm at least going to be the best I can at this defensive role that they're giving me. They were gracious enough to keep me. They didn't even have to keep me. They could have just cut me right off. They already had 49 guys, and let alone they gave me a position on the field. So I was in that kind of mindset of yeah, it sucks. I'm not getting the offensive minutes that I'm used to, but at least I'm on the field. Not a lot of people can say, they can say they played in the Carrier Dome, but they sat the bench. I was on the field. I played against the Syracuse players. I was playing defense. I took it kind of as a, best case scenario of, I'm playing top 10 Division I, playing against some of the best players in the world. So I try to be a positive mindset anyway. And Coach Marr is a huge positive guy. Never really got too freaked out about people dropping passes in practice. Anybody that would yell or get mad, he would just say, "Hey, get the next one. Figure it out, get the next one." So that's where I think being in that environment as well, kind of helps you ease it off a little bit. So also being late in your career, I think if I was a freshman and I transferred in thinking, I'm top dog, I'm a good enough offensive player. Being a senior, you're kind of growing up at that point. You see stuff in a different light than a freshman would. Midway through the season, I kind of realized that I wasn't going to be one of their top offensive guys. So I was just grateful to be on the field when I got on the field. So that's really how I kind of tackled it. And it really did. It instilled quite a bit of character in me for stuff after life, after lacrosse. So, I don't take stuff to heart now, whereas, maybe if I played unlimited amount of minutes, I'd be a bit more of a head case kind of deal. But, I'm pretty easygoing now after going through stuff like that. So.
Every experience is a good experience if you learn from it.
Yeah. Yep. And I always try to put a positive spin on it. So, yeah.
That's good. Good for you.
And you got to, obviously the trips you've kind of described, but I mean, you played for a team that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you lost in the Elite Eight, right? You were one game away from the Final Four, or am I wrong?
No, we lost in the Elite Eight, only by like 2 goals, I think, to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
We lost the year before that to Notre Dame as well. But yeah, playing Cornell, playing Syracuse, UMass, traveling basically the country. We played Cornell one game in Texas. That was I don't know if you guys heard about that trip, but one of the few times that there was an ice storm in Texas, and when we played there, and they grounded all the flights, they wouldn't let us fly out. So we had to take a bus back to Albany from Texas, and It was about a 35-hour bus ride straight. And, we stopped to eat, and that was about it. They had 3 bus drivers that were just rotating them in and out. And it was, by the end of that bus trip, I never wanted to get on a bus again.
Well, did Cornell have to do the same thing? Or any idea?
I don't remember if they stayed a little bit longer and then they flew back like a couple days later, but for whatever reason, I'm not sure if it was a financial situation between, Cornell's finances and University of Albany's finances, but I want to say University of Albany told our staff, you got one of 2 options. And one of them was the bus. So,
well, now that you bring this up, you're going to have to tell us, was this some sort of tournament or a special? What the hell is Albany and Cornell going down to Texas for to play a game?
It was actually
in an ice storm.
Yeah. You might as well stay here.
Right?
Could have met in Syracuse for all. Yeah.
We could have went right to Cornell. They could have came to us. It's not that far of a trip.
Yeah.
But, it was actually for a Wounded Warrior Fund. 2 other teams came down as well. I can't remember the stadium that we played in. It was a bigger football school down there that we played at. And one of the alumni from Albany lacrosse team was living down the road, so they had a giant cookout for us after the game, and some kind of Texas-style breaded catfish and the whole 9 yards. They had a giant mansion of a house, so it was a cool experience. Minus the bus ride. I mean, the bus ride was fun for the majority of it, but the tail end was a little bit crazy.
After about 8 or 10 hours, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't
tough to
that long.
Poor guys.
All right. Well, it's fun. That's kind of, that's a good story, because I would have never thought. I didn't know that. You went all the way down to Texas to play a game against Cornell. So anything else stick out before we get back on some other stuff? And anything stick out again about from those U of Albany times that you want to mention before we move on to other things? But
just the fact that I'm super gracious that I went to Albany instead of I could have gone to a University of Vermont or something like that. I could have done that right as a freshman and made their squad, and but I really wanted to push myself and see how good I actually was. So I'm gracious that I went to specifically Albany, because 1, I had a couple friends on the team, and 2, it's a lot like home environment. A lot of blue collar guys. They're not coming from super rich backgrounds. A lot of guys just grinded it out. The environment all around is just a perfect setting, I think.
And what was it like? Because I obviously didn't get an opportunity, and other than probably close friends and family. But what's it like at a home game for U of Albany, becoming a major power in the sport? Had been I'm assuming good quality crowds and a good environment to play.
Yeah. So they actually, when I was a senior, they were finishing up. Or I went for my senior year, and then I had to stay for a 5th year. I redshirted my senior year, and then I played my 5th year. And that summer, they were finishing up the new football stadium, gorgeous stadium. So once that was up and running, they let us play there quite a few times, and they packed that thing for quite a few of the games. I mean, you get your lulls for the lesser teams, but with you think about it, 50 players on your team. Everybody's got parents and family, so there's quite a few fans at every single game, no matter where it was. So, I was kind of used to the crowd size, though. Dave and Pete can probably attest to I don't think you've ever gone over to the island, Joey, not being a lacrosse guy, but being on the island, those playoff games, that there's nowhere to even stand in there. Junior nations, American teams, top of their reign for both of them. So I was pretty used to the crowd size and that kind of stuff. Syracuse was a bit of a different level. It's kind of an experience in itself, but for the most part, most of the teams are all outdoor and crowd sizes, it is what it was. But
I've been to. Go ahead, Cody.
No, I was just saying they did draw quite a few people in the crowd for Albany. So especially now having this success, they've sent 10, 12 players to the professional leagues from Albany the past few years. So they get quite a bit of press and fans now. So
it doesn't hurt either that it's only 3.5 hours or 3 hours from home too. There are a lot of people that made that trip down there, so that helps a lot too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That you got the benefit also of being close to home. So, I'm sure your family went to. If they didn't go to all the games, I bet they went to quite a few.
Yeah, they made sure to go to all of them. Some of the further ones away they might not go, but
all the home games for sure. Yeah.
So they enjoyed it, and Dad doesn't mind driving, so he would drive down, hang out for a while, and drive back, or
nice
catch a hotel room here and there. But
as Dave can attest to, sorry, Joey, as Dave can attest to, we've been to the Carrier Dome for basketball games. I've been to football games down there too. It's very intimidating when you're down there for a football game. I had end zone seats, and it's like it's totally awesome compared to basketball. Because the Carrier Dome is split in half for basketball. It's not for football, so it's totally different. And I understand. I couldn't imagine being on that field and looking up and looking around because it is huge.
Yeah, and that's what, like, shooting and warm-ups and stuff, you just I felt weak because it just felt like it was so far away. That arena is so big, you just puts it in perspective for you. You look up and you're like, oh my God, this place is huge. So and I've been to sporting events there, same thing in the crowd, but it really doesn't hit you till you get out on the field and you look around.
Sure. Yeah.
And their field's the same size as everybody else, but it just feels
right. And I'm sure now you said something about the air there. There was a different now since they put on a new roof, so I'm trying to figure out what you think the air differential was there. Is it just because it was enclosed, or?
So when you come in, like at least where we came in, they almost like lock you in this little room before you go in completely to the Carrier Dome. I don't know. It's got that weird airflow effect or whatever it is.
There's a suction at the doors. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, like, it almost feels like you're coming into a different kind of air quality or that, like a, different room basically. So
it's like a vapor lock. Yeah.
All those it's all those Carrier air conditioners.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just puts a different feeling on. I don't know if it was in my head or what, but just walking out on the floor, just felt the air was different.
Well, I know walking out of there after 6 or 7 beers after a basketball game, I've had issues getting through those.
The airlock will just about knock you over.
Yeah. Well, and it didn't help that Jeff White was right in front of me. That didn't help either, so.
Whitey. Yeah.
Hey, so CK, you gotta because this is something kind of new to our show because you were an actual one. Talk a little bit about the red shirt season and what that was about. And why it came about, because a lot of people hear, well, he's redshirting this year, and they don't understand what that's all about. Describe that a little bit, and what you were able to do during your redshirt season.
Yep. So redshirting, there's a lot of different reasons that people do it. A lot of them will do it as freshmen, so that they get that experience of practicing with the team, getting the flow down, getting stronger. Maybe the kid's not strong enough, so maybe a year to grow or whatever. So they'll redshirt them at the beginning. A lot of football teams will do that. So they'll redshirt them for their first year, and then after that, they've already got the experience from playing themselves. And you can actually play, I want to say, 2 or 3 games, I think, as a redshirt before your redshirt qualifications are pulled. I'm not sure if they're games or scrimmages or what the case may be, but in my case, at least, coming in, since I transferred from Clarkson to Adrian, and then from Adrian to Albany, there was some rule in the NCAA that a third time or a second time transfer had to sit out a year. So that's why I chose to redshirt, and I knew I had a 5th year anyway to finish my degree. So, it was a pretty easy decision to redshirt that, and I talked to the coaching staff, and they were fine with it. Like I said, they're probably the most relaxed coaches I've ever had in my life. So,
so did you have a sense during that redshirt season that, hey, my senior year, it's did you already have the idea I'm going to end up being on the man down team, or I'm not going to be the offensive guy that I was hoping to be? So did you have a good sense of that before your actual senior season began?
So I actually didn't. So that's why in my opinion, I felt like, I could have gotten more playing time than I did, because I was on what they called it scout squad. So we would run so it was me and like a bunch of freshmen or sophomores that weren't really playing very much. So we would run most of the opposing team's offense. We would have our assistant coach giving us, offensive sets to run, and just so that our starting defensemen could get the hang of, what they're going to do that week. So I ran scout squad, and I did pretty well, I would say, against our starting defensemen. And that's why I felt like I should have gotten a little bit more playing time. But going into my 5th year, I tore my meniscus. I got that repaired. I tore it in the fall. I tore it over the summer in box lacrosse. Played on it until I got back to Albany. Played a little bit in the fall, and then Coach Mom said, looking for your future. I don't want to completely tear your knee apart, so let's go get you fixed up. So luckily they have a hospital right across the road from Albany that we have a team doctor with them, so he fixed my meniscus. I did a whole bunch of rehab on it over the break. Came back with a brace. I'm not sure if that played a bit of an effect, not being a full 100% coming into the spring season, but I guess I didn't have any idea that I wouldn't have gotten that playing time as a 5th year, so being in the redshirt position.
Well, good. That's a great description of that, because you hear a lot of you always hear that if you're watching a college game, especially a major in any level, any sport, you'll hear them mention this kid was a red shirt, and that's a good description of that. So
it's basically it's a very intelligent move, especially top Division I level teams. Like, why risk having this freshman not have a successful freshman year when you can practice against your experienced seniors and get him that exposure and get him used to playing at the next level, and then he has 4 full years to provide for you, to reap the benefits of getting a year of just practicing. And in all honesty, anybody that's thinking about redshirting early on in their career, it's fun. You're on the scout squad, you're running offenses that the other team's going to do. You can't really mess up, because if you score, it's on the defense. If you don't score, well, it's not our offense. So it's a kind of a win-win situation for a year or so.
And I can't speak for all the sports, but I being a basketball guy, I know that back in the day, like in the 60s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as good as he was, could not play as a freshman. Freshmen weren't allowed to play varsity at the varsity level in college back in the day for whatever reason. I don't know if that was their way of saying a red shirt, but obviously times have changed immensely. Yeah. Now you're lucky to get a kid there for his freshman season.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
The only time for me when it gets confusing is when there's a player on the field and he's called a redshirt freshman, but he's actually playing. You see that, and I see it more so in football.
Yeah, I think that comes with. I'm not exactly sure about the specifics of it, but I do think you are allowed to play up until a certain amount of minutes or games or whatever it is before your tag is pulled. So.
Is that the same concept, Joey, as a JV player being moved up to varsity, and he has to, after so many games, he has to stay there versus going back down to JV? Is it the concept, or it sounds like it, but
Yeah, yeah, because CK brought up, there might have been a number of scrimmages or a number of games he wasn't sure, because you always think about, somebody gets injured, and I'm thinking of Syracuse basketball players, and the debate starts happening, are you going to be able to get a medical red shirt, maybe he played 10 games up of a 30-game season, and they're going to say, okay, those 10 games aren't going to count towards his full 4 years of playing, and he gets another season. So, and a lot of that stuff's about to happen right now because of this COVID thing. There's going to be big conversations about how to get kids their full 4 seasons, because they're missing out. So,
especially for those seniors, like, what do you do with that if they're actually on time to graduate? What do you have them come back for a graduate program, or that's extra money out of their pocket? So, you're tossing up, what's it worth to play one more season if you're in that position?
It's big decisions for those kids, I'm sure. Geez, do I want to fork out X amount of dollars for one more season? Especially with the way the world is right now. I don't know if you want to fork out that kind of money again. So, but it's hard to take away your dream.
Not unless it pays off, but no.
That's true too. Yeah,
it's
you're
a
right.
hell of a gamble.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, and then there's also, even if you know that you're not going to play at a professional level, in your mind, this is it. This is going to be the last time I get to do this. So is it worth it for that?
Yeah.
It's all kinds of scenarios that play out for that.
So, CK, I never asked, but, was it your time down there in the Albany area that, led the family business down in that direction? Or was that someplace that mom and dad really wanted to get down to?
I don't think mom and dad really knew what was down here. Like the Hudson Valley's, riddled with farm to table restaurants. That I think being down here and them experiencing, what's actually out there, kind of did help lead to us eventually moving down here. And I know my sister and brother-in-law wanted to come down this way for a while. But we had to build up the accounts, and, me being down there, knowing the area helped a ton, just getting around, to say the least, and figuring out where all the restaurants were. So I think if we hadn't gone to Albany, I'm not sure if I hadn't gone to Albany, I'm not sure if, we would have looked at this area as heavily for relocating our business. But it's a good spot. Like I said, the Hudson Valley is riddled with farm to table everything, really. So,
well, in the proximity, you get yourself, you're 3.5 hours closer to New York City. You're closer to Boston. You're closer to Vermont. It's probably a great location when it comes to getting your product out to all sorts of different areas.
Yeah, it helps not to have to drive 3 hours through the mountains and not have one stop there. That was what we were beating our trucks up, and it was, I was pulling 19-hour days going down because we didn't have a place to stay yet. I was doing 19-hour trips. I would come down to Albany, deliver, and turn around and go back. Those were not fun days.
Long day.
Yeah. Not that they're getting any shorter, but
no, and you got that New York weather you got to deal with too,
Yeah. Yep.
Being from
if
the
you
north,
break down, as you guys know, break down Saranac, nobody's coming by to help you out too quick.
Not for a while. No.
They're sending up a smoke signal. There's no service either.
Yeah.
Even Route 3 between Saranac Lake and Plattsburgh, man, that can be a lonely stretch of road.
Yep.
Well, CK, we got about 10 minutes left, and as we're getting close to winding down, the one thing I didn't bring up yet, obviously getting married, I think, is way more important than this. But something else that's going to be impacted for you this year is you were going into SLC Hall of Fame in your first year of eligibility. More than likely, I don't see that happening this fall. It's not officially canceled yet, so don't call it off yet. But I mean, I don't see it happening. But we'll wait until sports is officially off. But we'll give you a chance to. So that gives me one more year, I guess, to prep your introduction speech. Not that I had been working on it yet, anyway. But
I see where I rank, Joey.
But I'll give you a little chance to talk about the fact that we're getting into the Hall of Fame this fall in your time at SLC. And, you know, you're modest. You're modest about your basketball career. No, not greatly skilled, but you are one of only 4 to be a finalist for the Joukowsky Award from St. Lawrence Central, along with the 2 white boys and Matthew Berg. So, and you were my first finalist. So, you know, you don't sell yourself short. So go ahead, talk about your time at SLC in these last few minutes, and you know, and the fact that you're going into the Hall of Fame, if not this fall, definitely next fall.
My time in SLC, you know, I'm super fortunate that I grew up in Brazier. There's not a lot of communities that open, you know, their doors to their kids in the community like Brazier does. You know, I could show up, even now I could go to Riverview, get, you know, 3 sheets to the wind and crash on the Keenan couch, and Mary would wake up and, you know, here's a cup of coffee for you. No questions asked. You know, I kind of found that's the way the whole community is. You know, it's a very tight-knit community out there, especially the athletic community. You know, being skilled is one thing, but having the people behind you to help mold you as a person, I think, is a bigger picture for St. Lawrence Central. You know, and it really goes across the board, from Joey to Coach Rose to, you know, Coach St. Hilaire. I was pretty close with St. Hilaire. You know, anybody in that coaching staff for all the sports is, you know, top notch in my opinion. You know, and I've played on quite a few teams, kind of hopped around to my fair share of coaching staff, but yeah, I'm super grateful that I'm getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. You know, I can kind of wave that in the rest of my family's face for a little bit, at least. And Beth's not the only one in there now, I guess. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just, I'm more of a modest person anyway, so I contribute it to everything that I've gone through, and the community itself really helped mold me to the player I was. You know, like I said, I didn't feel like I definitely wasn't a Matt Berg, and we all know that for basketball. But, you know, the effort was there, and the heart was there. And, you know, I think when you have a community behind you like that, it's hard to go wrong, really. So
I want to go back to your what you said about the Riverview. Even people that don't live in the community are taken care of too. Rumor has it. I mean, I'm just, so, but yeah.
That wasn't you just sleeping on the bench.
No comment. Anyway. Very
yeah.
great community
Well, yeah.
out there.
Yeah, yep. Pete's had his fair share with us at the Riverview CK, so he knows exactly what you're talking about. But.
Yes, I do.
I know I can always walk in, and I can count on Joey being on one bar stool, and Jeff White, and maybe Ryan over there on the other bar stool. So.
And you have no idea how much I am missing that right now. Yeah. It's killing me. This drinking beer on my front porch is I don't know what I'm going to do come December, because that's going to be pretty tough. So, so CK, before we wrap it up, number one, tough one for me, because you mean so much to me. You know, we had Chris Bernard on last night, an SLC grad, and Chris said something that stuck with me. And in fact, even Pete asked him about it or mentioned it. Chris said how much better he is as a coach now than he was 5 years ago, and how much better he was as a coach than he was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago was when I was coaching you. And I immediately thought that. I'm like, if I'd have had you the way I coach now, I don't know what we would have done then, because you were the foundation and got things started for me personally. I had to learn how to coach. And unfortunately, I had to learn it with you, because otherwise, and I don't mean it that way, but I mean, unfortunately, I had to learn my way with a really good player, with a really good team. And I wish that I had you guys again, is what I'm getting at. And it's just kind of like what Chris Bernard was saying last night. You get better as you get older, you get smarter. But the one thing I'm going to tell you is you kept me in the sport. You gave me the passion to want to get better, because when you came along, I'm like, I can do this. And at some point, I'm going to win it. And 2 years later, with Nate Cole and this group of kids who were still tightly connected to you, we finally did. And the one thing I'm going to say about you, CK, because I don't want to give up your whole Hall of Fame intro speech, was I never saw a kid, Pete, Dave, and I've never seen one since. Matthew might come close. When this guy made a mistake, you didn't know, because he went and made it up immediately. I just never seen I never saw him hang his head ever after anything that he did wrong. He went and tried to make up for it immediately. And that's what you want in a high school athlete, especially. So CK, I can't thank you enough for coming on here tonight with us, and for everything that you've done for me. And I just, I love you to death, and I can't wait to be able to intro you in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully we can do that soon.
Hopefully. I appreciate it. It's means a lot to hear you say that. Like I said, the community helped me grow. And Joey, I know Pete and Dave laughed, but to me, you were pretty cool, calm, and collected for the most part. Growing up with Dad, he instilled, you don't hang your head. He's a pretty tough guy to deal with on a lot of different aspects, as Joey knows. But he did instill a lot of quality core values for me of work your ass off. Nobody's gonna give it to you. If you make a mistake, take a step to the left and keep going. And I wish I could kind of pass that on to as many young athletes as I can, because I do see a lot of them hanging their heads and getting down on themselves, when in reality, it's a game. Have fun with it, move on. You made a mistake, you screwed up, and get the next play. So
words to live by.
Yep.
Absolutely. But Cody, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a great hour. It went real fast. I'm sure we could talk a lot more, and I will be in touch for some meat. I will tell you that. Right? So mark my words. So thank you for coming on.
Maybe we get that again.
All right, everybody, that's going to be it here on ESS, Empire State Sports, the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Host Joey Riom, Dave Bartlett, myself, and our special guest Cody Kilcoyne, saying good night, everybody, and stay safe.